You knew the risks when you decided to drive drunk. There could be a crash. People could get hurt or killed. But that didn't stop you, did it? You knew you could get arrested. You could incur huge legal expenses, and you could possibly even lose your job. You were well aware of the consequences of driving drunk. But one thing's for sure. You were wrong when you said it was no big deal. Drive sober or get pulled over. This message brought to you by NHTSA.
Blog Talk Radio.
Let's go. It's time to attack. We the smartest, fastest, and most vicious. We gonna put them in their place. We coming around for one day.
And he's gonna fire deep. But there inside the 10. Throws Superman. Good route by Edelman. Now they come on a reverse to the near side and a quick run.
What up, NFL football fans out there, and welcome to another edition of Cover 2 with McMillan and Purdue, the show where we give you in-depth analysis about everything happening in your National Football League. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Devin McMillan, and I'm here at the round table with my partner, Fred Purdue, in the building. Fred, what's up, man?
What's going on, man? NFL football is back, but are we watching flag football yet? I think we are. I think they're confusing the leagues or something. What's going on? What's going on?
I literally saw somebody the other day get flagged for a personal foul simply for sacking the quarterback. It was, and it was seriously, notably one of the cleanest sacks, cleanest tackles, textbook, the most textbook tackle you'd ever see. And he got flagged for a personal foul. Like, I don't even get it anymore, man.
I don't know. I don't get it either. I mean, it's to the point now where I used to teach tackling, and I'm questioning my own. I'm questioning my own coaching at this point. I don't know. What's a tackle? What's a catch? Next, we're gonna say what's an incomplete pass by a quarterback? I mean, what's a bad throw? I mean, what's a fumble? What else are we gonna question here? I mean, get the flags ready. Just get the flags ready, and we can play flag football. 7-on-7.
All right. Well, we're back for our the continuation of our 2018 NFL preview. If you listen to the last episode, we gave you the AFC and NFC West divisions. In this episode, we're going to give you the AFC and NFC North divisions. So we're going to jump right into this, and we're going to start you off with that AFC North division, of course, in inverse order from how they finished last year. So that could only mean one thing, Fred. That means we start with the Cleveland Browns. So
with the first pick Browns, in the NFL draft?
The Cleveland Browns ended with a 0-16 record. So, it's not hard to understand why we're going first with them, especially in an inverse order. But some of let's talk about the team changes for Cleveland. Let's talk about some additions, some losses, anything notable on the coaching staff, draft picks, etc. Anything from the coaching staff?
Todd Haley takes over as offensive coordinator. I think we're going to get a little bit of a. I mean, this is something. I mean, he's had success in various places, but I don't know. The quarterback there don't seem like they match the Alex Smith or Ben Roethlisberger mold. I mean, you got Tyrod, you got Baker Mayfield, and then whoever. I mean, for me, these are the only two guys that really matter, but does it really fit? I don't know.
At the very least, he has some talent to work with in Cleveland for a change. All right, so some of the veteran additions, man. Of course, just like you just said, we got Tyrod Taylor, Drew Stanton. So they added two veteran quarterbacks. Running back Carlos Hyde, wide receiver Jarvis Landry. There's more. I'm just giving you the notable ones. Linebacker Michael Kendricks. Safety Demarius Randall. In the draft, they went with another quarterback. So this team added three quarterbacks in the same offseason. We all know the first pick in the draft, Baker Mayfield. They drafted Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, defensive end Chad Thomas, Antonio Callaway, Jannard Avery. Some of the losses, quarterbacks, Deshaun Kaiser, Cody Kessler, running back Isaiah Crowell, Joe Thomas, lost him to retirement, Danny Shelton, Tank Carter, Jason McCourty, and Jamar Taylor. Any key additions or departures that I may have forgotten that you definitely want to note?
No real major. Josh. We can say Josh Gordon. He's back. I mean, he's going to be the difference.
Josh Gordon is gone and back, all in the same off season. So he's a departure and an addition. So we
can put Josh and then Gordon. We put half his name in one of the other. So yeah, that'll work perfectly.
Right. So Josh left and Gordon returned.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about this offense, this fairly young, talented offense. What do you see? What do you foresee with the offense of this team? You have, like I said, we have Tyrod Taylor. We have the number 1 pick, Baker Mayfield. Do you see him getting onto the field at some point? And how do you think these quarterbacks are going to gel with all of these weapons that they do have on this team now?
Well, and we did forget one departure, Corey Coleman. He's gone. Doesn't really matter. They didn't give him a chance to develop, but I think they picked up a nice replacement in Antonio Callaway. And I'll start with that one because we all know really good quarterbacks need guys to throw to, and they also need guys to hold up a little bit so they can get the ball downfield. I think you're going to get you're going to have a team that really relies on the run game. Losing Joe Thomas is huge. I mean, you're losing your rock for the last, 10, 11 years, and he was in his prime still. So he's gone on. He's like, I'm tired of losing, and I'd rather.
Tired of that. Yeah, I mean, come on.
Even though he had a choice,
coming off an injury, like why rehab for this team? Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, at some point he's a Hall of Famer, but for me, I think in moving Joel Bitonio from guard to tackle, we'll see how that goes. We may see like a nice rotating door at tackle, so that could be a problem because protecting the blind side of either one of these quarterbacks who like to move around a lot, that's going to be tough. So I think this team should run the ball a little bit more than normal. You have the backs to do it, so why not put Nick Chubb to the test? Why not put Duke Johnson to the test? Why not put Carlos Hyde? All good pass catchers, by the way. They can get involved in the passing game. I think you're going to have a pretty explosive, physical football team to start as long as Tyrod's your starter to start with so you don't shell-shock Baker Mayfield, who didn't look terrible in the first couple games. But I'm one of those staunch believers. I'm old school. Hey, sit this quarterback for a minimum 8 games. And if you just don't have to start him, don't touch him. Let him watch. Let him and wait till next. Give him a red shirt year. It worked for Carson Palmer. Just saying.
And I'm thinking that's what Hugh Jackson is thinking because even he said himself that he kind of learned a lesson throwing Deshaun Kaiser right into the fire last season. Even you were still the Cleveland Browns last season, so whether you threw him into the fire or not, I mean, because that's the only thing with a team like Cleveland. You always go with why not factor because they don't really have much to lose. But he's going to play a little smarter because he does have a much improved roster. So, there's a lot of pundits out here that really thinks that Cleveland can make a move. And if I'm thinking with my football brain, like I can totally understand how people are saying that. But come on, we've seen Cleveland Browns all our lives. They definitely have to show and prove before I jump on that bandwagon. I definitely think they have the talent, but I'm not jumping out there like that. All right, so on the defensive side of the ball, what do you think is the ceiling for this defense in 2018 at least?
I know one thing is constant in this defense. Myles Garrett, he's that guy. I saw it coming. He's that guy. He's the guy you want to build around. Christian Kirksey's a guy you want to build around, tackling machine. But and Denzel Ward, the high draft pick this past draft. I think those are 3 guys who can. Yeah, you can build. Now we saw this happen before, almost exactly the same way. Drafted a quarterback in Johnny Manziel, drafted a DB in Justin Gilbert. It didn't work the first time. Maybe this time around it'll work. But Denzel Ward seems like he can be the guy at corner that you can build around. Corner is probably the easiest position to kind of transition to because a lot of times it's just you and the guy you're guarding. You don't have to learn a lot of complicated things, especially if you're really that good. So you have your three levels, three guys at three different levels: D-line, linebacker, and defensive back. Now you have to put the pieces around them to make those guys look good. So but I don't really get the identity of this defense yet. Are they going to be a physical bunch? Are they going to be more of a finesse kind of team? Will they be able to tackle? But then I can say that about all 31 other teams too. But for me, what I think this team is going to get, they're going to go through a lot of growing pains early. And if they can just kind of build week to week, because they're not making the playoffs. Let's be honest about that. They're not making the playoffs. But if you see gradual improvements, maybe the same busted coverages you see early on, those guys improve on the technique of those players. And within maybe next year, you see a little bit more. And then next year after that, you see the final product. Because usually you can kind of judge after about 3 to 5 years.
Right. So, and I'm thinking that Denzel Ward will probably be in the starting lineup, probably across from E.J. Gaines. And you know, like you talked with Demarius Randall, who's going to make the move to safety. I think they have a pretty talented defense. And, you know, you brought up Myles Garrett. You can't talk about this defense without bringing up Myles Garrett. What did he have? 7 sacks last year in just 11 games that he played?
Yeah.
So the there, we know what he's going to bring. And, you know, you have guys like Agba on the other side who might just benefit from the attention that Myles Garrett is going to get. So take a look at their schedule. Let me know, what games you think are key games, and then give me your prediction on what their record might end up being. And they do start out with the Steelers at the Saints, Jets at the Raiders, Ravens, Chargers at the Buccaneers, at the Steelers, the Chiefs, then Falcons, and then they have a bye week in Week 11. Can they come out of the gate with any success?
They're going to be this team could possibly be 1-5 to start the season. The only win you might get is against the Jets at home. And that's even a stretch because the Jets have improved, especially on the defensive side. They'll be coming back. They'll also, and it might get even worse than that because you get Tampa when Jameis will be 4 games back by that point, so he'll be a well-oiled machine. Then you get Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and Atlanta. They might sneak up on maybe the Raiders. Outside of that, I don't see any way you can be more than 1-9, which is better than last year. That's improvement, but not the kind of improvement you want to see.
Yeah. I mean, I can see a world where, they could sneak up on the Jets, Raiders, Ravens, and maybe the Buccaneers. So I'm thinking there's 4 possible wins. I'm not saying they're going to get it, but there's 4 possible wins before that bye week. Overall, though, I see improvement in the team, so I'm going to go somewhere in the 5 and 6 game win range for the entire season. There's a lot of people out there who are saying because of the talent on this roster that this could be a worst to wild card type situation. I'm not even going to say worst to first, but a worst to wild card type situation. I don't see that, but I see a step in the right direction. So I'm going to go 5 or 6 wins for the Browns. What about you?
I'm a little bit right below you. I'm thinking maybe 3 to 4. It's just every week it's just great offense, a really good defense, and the war of attrition. That's what the NFL is. Bye week, 10, you've gone through really good offenses that are starting to have really decent defenses. And if one guy in the secondary goes down, one guy at linebacker goes down, maybe Myles Garrett gets nicked up, the offensive line doesn't work out. By the way, they said that Jarvis Landry says they're scoring 30, 40 points a game. Yeah, okay. Patriots, the 07 Patriots were about the only team that did that. So, yeah, I'd be willing to say you might score 14 to 17 points a game and still be winning 3 or 4 games.
He's driven. Definitely driven. All right, so let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, who finished last season at 7-9. This team missed the playoffs. Like we talked about before, you know, your man has been coaching this team since the Shaq and Kobe era.
Oh, yeah, he has papers on people. He has papers and pictures on everybody.
Yeah, and doesn't have one playoff win to show for it. So, you know, however he keeps that job, like, please let me know. But let's jump into the Cincinnati Bengals real quick. Let's talk some additions, some departures. I think the most notable veteran additions, of course, on the offensive line, Cordy Glenn, defensive tackle Chris Baker, formerly of Washington's fame, inside linebacker Preston Brown. Who'd they pick up in the draft of note?
In the draft, for me,
Billy
when I
Price.
look at Billy Price, offensive lineman, Ohio State, he could be a nice starter. They not a lot of big names. Mark Walton, Miami, that could, in a loaded running back class or loaded running back room. Not impressed. I haven't really. Yeah, there you go.
Gotta do that.
I haven't really been impressed by this. I haven't really been impressed by this class that they brought in. Usually they bring in a corner, they bring in a lineman, and they find ways to keep replenishing the talent that they lose. But not impressed by what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in a couple of cornerbacks, but I guess you're saying they're not moving the needle on you too much. Devontae Harris and Darius Phillips. But some of the notable losses
Malik Jefferson is the one I thought as an inside backer. He may be somebody you may want to kind of watch out for if he can stay healthy from Texas. Yeah.
Okay. Some of the off-season losses, correct, A.J. McCarron, running back Jeremy Hill, Andre Smith from the offensive line, Russell Bodine from the line, defensive end Chris Smith, Kevin Minter, and Adam Pac-Man Jones. So let's talk about the offense before we get into that defense. They average, I think back in 2015, they averaged like 25.5 points per game. Past season, they were at 18.1 points per game. And they just seemed like they really couldn't get things done outside of the red zone. Inside of the red zone, Jeremy Hill wasn't the same touchdown producer that he had been in seasons past. I think the problem was the offensive line most of the time. Because I never really thought Jeremy Hill was such a dynamic runner anyway. So I thought the offensive line had declined a little bit, which we always tell people, the fat boys up front determine what's going to happen everywhere else. And I think that's where the biggest loss was. Do you think that they improved this line enough to make another run for the playoffs this season?
Not really, and I agree with you. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year, and you just when you look at the tackles, not a lot of help there. Andy Dalton's out there just throwing the guys, hoping he can get enough time to just hope he can throw it up to AJ Green, hoping that maybe Jalen Ramsey isn't there to throw him down and he doesn't have to chokehold anybody. But he's out there really by himself right now because it's like this team has built a team the complete opposite way that you would want to build a team. Typically, you build a team inside out, not outside in. But this team has gone outside in, and it just doesn't make sense, especially on the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned A.J. Green. I would still say, like, I would match A.J. Green up against anybody as far as wide receivers in the league goes. Mm-hmm. I don't think he gets that notoriety from the national public because of, their offense, because Andy Dalton has probably regressed a little from his first 2 years. He just doesn't have an elite passer passing him the ball. But I think he's in store for another strong season. But from a running back perspective, like, who's going to get it done this season from the backfield?
Joe Mixon led the team as a rookie in rushing yardage, 626 yards. He only averaged 3.5 a carry, but 4 touchdowns, led the team in touchdowns as well as rushing yardage, and it wasn't even close. But the addition of a Mark Walton may help. Gio Bernard, I think that might be the replacement for him. But to me, it doesn't really matter what your running backs do or how talented they are because you just don't have a guy to block for them. And it just seems like year in and year out, offensive line talent is just hard to find. And when you get them, you just don't let them go. And they've let go a lot of guys, whether it's like a Kevin Zeitler or anybody else. Any talent you get, you have to keep them.
Yeah, and as far as the running back position does go, like when Mixon came into the mix, no pun intended, you kind of saw the writing on the wall for Jeremy Hill this particular year. So we'll see how the offense goes. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball real quick. What do you see from this Cincinnati defense coming into this year?
Strong secondary, very strong secondary, very good defensive line. Preston Brown will help them in the middle of that defense. Vontaze Burfict, we know what you're getting from him. You're getting an aggressive player. I don't like to call him a dirty player. He's an old school player that likes to hit somebody in the mouth and then taunt them. And the problem is we don't really live in 1995 to about 2003 where big hitting linebackers just patrol the middle of the field. We live in patty cake land where there's no actual target zone for linebackers, and it's crazy to think nowadays that we celebrate the Hall of Fame linebackers we just celebrated a few weeks ago could not survive in today's NFL because you can't touch anybody.
Right, they would be basically legislated out of the game just the back to the basket center in basketball.
Exactly.
Like you got dudes like Clint Capella that can get $90 million, and dudes like Dwight Howard, even though he never really developed moves. But the guys that I'm talking about, those kind of guys can barely get more than 2 years on a contract. So it's interesting from a football perspective as well, because like we said in the open. Guys like Vontaze Burfict doesn't learn how to start grabbing flags, then his career might not last much longer. So
definitely. I think the strength of this defense is going to be their defensive line, though.
Right.
Geno Atkins he's one of the best defensive tackles in the league, but he doesn't get, like A.J. Green, just doesn't get the credit. 9 sacks last year. From the defensive tackle position where he's having to play a little bit of nose. He's trying to play a little bit of a rushing tackle. You also have Carlos Dunlap, who I'm pleasantly surprised that he's still when he came out of college after all the stuff he had going on, despite having the talent, I just didn't see it because you see certain things. But he's made a nice little career for himself. 7.5 sacks this past year. Long defensive end that just likes to eat quarterbacks, and those two guys have made a pretty good living eating quarterbacks. It just hasn't translated to wins, and this team just seems to find its way into mediocrity.
All right, well, speaking of that, let's talk about any key games that you see on the schedule. I'm going to be frank about this one, and I don't know why I'm going here about the Bengals and not about the Browns. I guess because the Browns have nowhere to go but up. I look at the schedule, and it's not necessarily a murderer's row. They have a bye in Week 9. They start at the Colts, home to the Ravens, at the Panthers, at the Falcons, home to the Dolphins and Steelers, at the Chiefs, and then home to the Buccaneers before their bye week. It's not that the schedule is scary or daunting. I just don't have any confidence in this team. Like, I don't think they're very good anymore. They had a run where they had a really talented roster, and they got into the playoffs a few times, but they did nothing once they got there. I kind of think that window is closed on them, even though they will have some bright spots in their defense, and, of course, have some bright spots on offense as long as you have A.J. Green in the mixing. But I just don't think the roster is the same. I don't think the team is that good anymore. So, me personally, I'm gonna put them around the same range as the Browns, around the 5 or 6 wins range. Anything different that you see from this team?
Not much. I'm being very generous when I say this. 7 wins, and that's where they top out. They give the Steelers a nice run for their money every now and then. It just seems like every other game, it's like they'll win the games they're supposed to win. They'll beat the Colts. They'll probably beat the Ravens. They'll give Cam Newton and company a problem or two. But when it comes to that stretch, the stretch that's going to really show us who they are is from week 6 to 10. And, yeah, they'll get a bye week. But you get the Steelers, Chiefs, Bucks, and Saints in all of that. And those are some high-powered offenses and a little bit of defense sprinkled in there. That's the talent level is a little bit better. So you might see this team start out kind of strong, maybe 4-0, 4-1, maybe 3-2, and then the bottom's going to fall out. We'll think this team's okay.
You might want to add week 11 and 12 to that mix as well, only they're division rivals and the Ravens and the Browns.
Exactly.
You never know.
The Browns, for whatever reason, they always have this really high-scoring game with the Bengals, or they have this 3-0 game or this overtime game that determines whether this team is going to have like one win or not. So
come on, man, it's the Bungles against the Doo-Doo Browns. You got to expect a good game. The toilet bowl.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I see 7 wins max, and that's being very, very generous.
All right. Well, let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens, who finished last season at 9-7. Frankly, before we even get started on the Ravens, frankly, I just think this division is not that good this season.
This division went from being a pretty strong division to a
pretty terrible division. So I'm thinking. I mean, Baltimore every other year they like to surprise people, but truthfully, I'm thinking whoever wins the division is going to be the only playoff representative. And it seems like, the Steelers might have a cakewalk to win this division. But let's talk about those Ravens. 9-7 last season. Any notable coaches, key departures, key additions?
For me, when I look at this team, offensively, you look at the offensive coordinators. Nothing's really changed coaching-wise. Philosophy-wise, they're still going to be a physical football team. Additions, Mark Andrews at tight end from Oklahoma. They needed another tight end. Anthony Averett, another good corner, especially now. You're going to need corners with Jimmy Smith being suspended for 4 weeks. Those guys are going to be pretty good. Bradley Bozeman from Alabama. It seems like the Ozzie Newsome fingerprints are all over this team in his last year. The guy I'm looking forward to seeing as far as an addition, former players, Orlando Brown Sr. comes in, and we all knew him as Zeus died. Well, his son is now on this team, and he doesn't look great. Orlando Brown Jr., not great, but he's a work in progress, and you can see little bits and pieces coming along. I don't think he'll be a star day one, but if he doesn't work out at tackle, might he work out at guard? Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a notable thought for this team. Yeah, as far as the what they added and what left, like I don't know, man. It's just like nothing to me sticks out. To say like, man, I can't wait to see the Ravens here. You know what I'm saying? So let's go to the offense, man. What do you think the ceiling is for this offense? I know a lot of it depends on which Joe Flacco decides to show up, because Joe Flacco, the good Joe Flacco, like I haven't seen him in a minute. Like, know where he is?
That guy does. He's still stuck in the lights went out when he left the Super Bowl again. He's still trying to find his way out of the stadium, but that's rather here nor there. I think his days are over with. It's time for the Lamar Jackson era to be ushered in, and I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
I mean, well, they got Lamar Jackson back there. They got Robert Griffin III back there. So it seems like when you look at his backups, it seems like the team might be trying to go in a different direction quarterback-wise than what we're used to seeing with a Joe Flacco. Because you look at Joe Flacco and what his skill set is, and then you look at his backups, and, like, there's nothing similar about Joe Flacco in comparison to his backups. So is this team trying to tell us that they're trying to move on to a more mobile quarterback? Is Joe the statue holding them up, holding their plans up? And how long will this leash be, since you do have a Jackson and a Griffin behind him? Like, do you think he's on the hot seat this year as far as quarterback stuff?
I do, because if you really pay attention to, and obviously we don't get to see you can't watch every team. It's almost impossible. But the few times I did get a chance to see this Ravens team, so many times I saw Joe Flacco, they kept trying to move him around in the pocket, move the launch point of the pass. And it's like, Joe Flacco's 6'6", 230, 240. You don't want him move. He's a statue. We're both faster than this dude. We move much better than this dude. But because he's the best guy you had at the time as far as the passer of the football, you have no choice. Now you have a choice. And for me, I actually think you should run Joe Flacco in the ground. Go ahead and pay him. Let him be bad. Because if you're not going to make the playoffs, be bad as possible. Why? Because you'll get better draft picks. And that's what you need to build a team. Insert Lamar Jackson here and there. Don't make him a wide receiver. Don't make him Cordell Stewart or an upgrade to that. No. You simply insert him into those games where there's a bit of a blowout, or you see if he can spark the offense. Give him a little opportunity against some prime competition. Don't ruin him. Just sprinkle him in a little. Just a little.
Right. They kind of revamped their receiving core. Michael Crabtree is probably the leader of that bunch now. You got John Brown and Snead. John Brown makes me a little bit nervous, though, because Bruce Arians said himself, like, his injuries, whatever he went through, his medical problems were so bad that he doesn't think that John Brown should continue his career. So this sounds like a risky pickup for the Ravens when this guy, former head coach, would say something like that. So we'll see what it is. But, I don't think the receiving core is great by any means necessary. Michael Crabtree was a great red zone threat. They did upgrade at tight end. So I just can't see the excitement with the team, man, especially with Flacco with his 6.1 yards per attempt from the time that he signed that big contract. So let's move it over to the defense, because the offense is really not exciting me in any way whatsoever. We would have to say that the secondary would be the strength of the defense, right? Even though Jimmy Smith is not going to be there, that could change. until his return. But would you say that they're the strength of the defense?
I would. Even if he's there, him, Marlon Humphreys, Tavon Young, and Eric Weddle. That's what I'm forgetting. Eric Weddle. Those are your four, and those guys are pretty good. And they'll need a little bit of help from the aging wonder that is Terrell Suggs. It seems like he doesn't get older, but these guys are locking all the receivers down. The only problem is how long can they cover? How much can they tackle? I mean,
right.
This defense isn't Ed Reed. I'll say it like this: Ed Reed and Ray Lewis are not walking through the door anymore. Literally.
Terrell Suggs' old asses and Eric Weddle's old asses. So I don't know. You know, like I said, I spoke about the secondary briefly, but I think it should be one of the league's best secondaries when it's all said and done. If Weddle's age doesn't just show up in a spectacular fashion, they should be pretty good back there. I mean, the Ravens are synonymous with defense. So year in and year out, even if they're having a year where they're not a top 2, top 5 defense, you can still depend on that to be the strength of this team. It's going to be whether or not the offense can help out with their fledgling quarterback and their weak receiving core, and we haven't even spoken about backfield, but I don't know. We'll see. Because they lost a lot of people. They lost Mike Wallace, who signed with the Eagles. They lost Jeremy Maclin, a couple of tight ends, and Watson and Gilmore. So we'll see how this team rebounds, man. I'm in the Baltimore, Washington area, so this is one of the teams that I get to see up close and personal. So we'll see how everything goes. But let's take a look at their schedule so we can give our range of prediction as far as their record goes. This team has a bye week in Week 10. Notable games for me, of course, those matchups against the Steelers, because that's one of those games where you throw that cliche out there that you can throw the records out of the window. The Ravens and the Steelers will always have knockdown, drag-out battles. So they're at the Steelers on September 30th, and then they have the Steelers at home November 4th. Getting a win over a team like the Steelers, even though it is somebody that they play tough regardless, could go a long way into building confidence and building momentum for the rest of the schedule. So, having the Steelers pretty early in the season could be a help, especially since they come out of the gate with the Bills, at the Bengals, the Broncos, before they meet the Steelers, then the Browns and Titans. So I think the Ravens could probably start the season out pretty well, but I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain it. For me, I'm looking at maybe 7 wins. I can put 8 wins in that range just because Baltimore definitely likes to surprise it sometimes. So I'll go 7 or 8 wins for the Baltimore Ravens. You see anything on the schedule that scares you? What's your prediction?
Yeah, what scares me about this team is you get from week 12. Actually, yeah, from about week 12 to 15, you get the Raiders. You get the Raiders at home. You have to go to Atlanta and go to Kansas City. You get Jameson Company at home, and then you have to go to the Chargers. That's a cross-country game. And by the way, that's a 1 o'clock start. Ooh, not good. So for me, when I look at how this schedule, these home games late are in the cold, and these are all typically warm seas. That may lend some help. But at the same time, again, the war of attrition, once we're at this point of the season, this team might be banged up and just out of it. And they, especially at this point, if you're in a playoff race, maybe looking to get that 7th, 8th, and 9th win that may just sneak you in, this is a good time to have a lot of these top teams because they're either trying to finish off a season and just not get hurt, because they've pretty much wrapped things up, or you could just catch a team slipping. Just catch a team slipping in the cold. These teams don't like these cold weather games, even though a lot of these teams are built for them.
All right. Well, for me, the only safety the Ravens, because we know Flacco was pretty pissed off when they traded up to the end of the first round to get Jackson. Maybe just because he wants to keep this rookie off of him, maybe, just maybe, Joe Flacco can raise his play to that Super Bowl level, and that might be worth a couple of more wins for this team. But there's the possibility that, people may have to live with, that he may just not be able to lift his game to that level anymore. But we will see, because if there was ever a reason to flip a switch, if you have a switch, this would be the reason. But yeah, 7 wins, maybe 8 wins for me. Let's move on to the division champions. Might most likely be the division champions again. The Pittsburgh
Can we just say
Steelers,
we can get that prediction out the way? Division champs.
The division champs.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers, who last year won this division at 13-3. Some of the additions and losses on this team, veteran additions include linebacker John Bostic, safety Morgan Burnett, safety Nat Bear. Some of their draft picks, Terrell Edmonds, who, he could be named Biscuit, like Parcells used to call Williams. He safety, but he's a biscuit away from being a linebacker. But he's a slash guy, so they list him at safety and linebacker. Wide receiver James Washington, quarterback Mason Rudolph. That should play no parts in what goes on with them this year, but we will see. And a couple other draft picks. Some of the notable losses: wide receiver Martavis Bryant, offensive tackle Chris Hubbard, Arthur Moats, Mike Mitchell, Robert Golden, J.J. Wilcox, and William Gay. Anything in the coaching staff that I should be aware of?
For me, Randy Fichtner, offensive coordinator change. Nothing out of the source. I think this team's going to still do what they do offensively.
Yeah.
They're still going
to run the ship the same way that he usually runs the ship.
Pretty much. We're going to run a tight ship. We're going to throw the football a lot. Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger will hook up a lot. Antonio Brown will put up huge fantasy numbers, which will correlate into a lot of big-time stats. I think Juju Smith-Schuster will definitely make things a lot easier. The only thing I'm worried about, and we'll get to it on the other side as far as departures, Ryan Shazier is not in this defense anymore. Uh-oh.
Right. And that's something that they're going to have to live with. I know they keep trotting him out. He's basically like the team mascot now, but, it's a sad story. But they need to get used to life without Ryan Shazier because, just like you said about Ray Lewis and reading them, he's not those guys, nor is he as old. He's not an older guy, but he's not walking through those doors. So, that defense is going to have to, try to play to that level that they try to play to when he shows up to the game and they use him as motivation. Let's talk about the offense, though, real quick. I don't think there's much we have to talk about here. You mentioned that receiving core, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Ben Roethlisberger, who at times last year when things got a little hard, he hinted at retirement a little bit. I don't think any of us really took him seriously, but, he can't possibly have too many years left, and he's had a uber successful career. What's the story on Le'Veon Bell? That's the big name. That's he's the engine to the ship. What's going on with him?
Still hasn't been paid. Needs to be paid, but not by this team. If I'm the Steelers, I run him in the ground and I pass him off as used goods. That's just how you treat all running backs.
Downside of his career.
Yeah, don't and this is nothing against, bad business tactics, but it's the game of football when it comes to roster management. You get the most out of what you can from a running back. If you win a Super Bowl out of it, great. If you don't, Don't lose any sweat out of it. Don't pay running backs. Don't overpay when you can go get a lineman somewhere. You can save the money for free agency the following year, and a guy just may come open. But whatever you do not pay running backs. And by the way, go draft a quarterback. At some point, Mason Rudolph's not the answer.
Right. Now, we talked about, in the last episode, we talked about David Johnson and how his name should come up when you talk about the best running backs in the league, especially the best all-around backs in the league. But this guy is probably, number one on a lot of people's lists. He's probably the first name that comes up. Last season, he rushed for 1,300 yards. He was about 8-9 yards shy of that, and he caught 85 passes. Like that's
more
the
than some
part.
receivers.
Right. That's more than
Green
a lot of
didn't have that many
receivers.
catches.
That's
Put
more
that
than
in
a lot of
perspective.
receivers.
Put that in perspective.
So that's the part
AJ
that's
Green
hard
had,
to match.
Le'Veon Bell had 86 catches, and AJ Green had 75. And AJ Green's the real receiver. Put that in perspective.
Yeah.
That's
but
how
altogether,
valuable this is.
he had around 400 touches. So, like you said, they do it again. It'll be what we expect for them to just run him in the ground since they're not going to pay him. We're going to get you for this one more year, and we're going to make it hard for somebody else. Somebody else pay you, they're going to be the fools in the situation. Mm-hmm. So we know the Steelers are a very explosive offense because they have very explosive weapons and a quarterback who can find these weapons at a good pace. So, I expect to see a little bit of the same from the Steelers, and I just think this division is going to be another cakewalk. But even though that's what we're thinking, let's talk about the defense a little bit before we go into the schedule and our predictions. But, you mentioned Ryan Shazier is not walking through the door, who was considered one of the top linebackers in the NFL before his injury. They had a lot of issues stopping the run after he was gone. And I think some of the numbers were like, and you never want to give this credit to just one guy, but they were giving up 17.5 points when he was on the field. And after he went down, they were giving up 26.7 points. I said there's no way that's all on one guy, but there could be a domino effect when such a good player goes down. What do you see for this defense this year? Since, there'll be basically a year removed from him being there anyway, and at this point they have to be used to it.
I expect a lot of the same. This team doesn't blitz a ton. They sit back in a lot of cover 2, cover 3. I expect a bend, don't break type of defense. Cam Hayward will do what he does. The days of Troy Polamalu just buzzing around all day, freelancing, those are over. Guys like Vince Williams will come around, Bud Dupree will come around, but this defense is going to get – it looks like it's getting worse. They may be infusing a little talent into it, but it's not the defense that we just grew to love. I mean, I very rarely say I like other teams, but certain guys on certain teams make the identity of the team. When you thought of the Steelers of the 2000s, you thought James Harrison, Troy Polamalu, Joey Porter. Those guys are gone. Those guys are gone. They're
the Steelers all time ever. It's always been about defense. That's why it's
exactly.
amazing.
And this team's just an offensive team.
Right.
This team's such an offensive team.
You know what they did during the offseason, though, man? They blew a lot of opportunities to replace Ryan Shazier. Like they missed out on some guys in the draft. They missed out on some free agents. So, like you said, they go back into the season pretty much in the same predicament.
Teams tend to not value the middle linebacker as much as they used to. But, if you're the Bears or the Bucks or teams that had a tradition there, the Ravens, but everybody, even the Bears, but most teams, they look at middle linebackers like they do fullbacks and running backs. They're just not valuable.
All right, well, I think they're all right on the edges. Shout out to T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, guys like that. Well, we'll see what the defense is going to do. Now, let's take a look at this schedule, because it seems like the same situation we went into last year. It could be a race between the Steelers and your Patriots for AFC supremacy. Those are the teams who've had like the best records in the league since like 2004. So it's like, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Mm-hmm. They have a pretty balanced schedule, in my opinion. They play the AFC North, which is their division, which is a pretty terrible division. So that could be a litany of wins in and itself. You know what I'm saying? Even though the Ravens are going to play them tough, playing them tough doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to drop any of those games. Some of their non-divisional games are going to come against the Chiefs, Falcons, Saints, Panthers, Chargers, and Patriots, and those are some of the stronger games on their schedule. They're going to get, they're going to lose all of those teams because they're the strongest team. So I don't know. I think that they may land somewhere like they did last year. I say 12-4 for this Pittsburgh team coming out of the regular season. Do you see anything on the schedule that's going to, steer you away from at least 12 wins?
I think you're in my playbook. Sounds like some Spygate going on over there, sir. No.
The camera's out.
I don't know. You got stuff in the walls? I'm just trolling you Steeler fans. Whatever. But I think 12-4 sounds good. For me, key games for me, New England, obviously, at the end of the year, especially that's a game where you're looking at who might have a top seed in the AFC, maybe for home field. The Saints' second to last game. What if you have things all kind of wrapped up, and you can't make the first to get the top seed? Do you just sit guys and just let the backups get a little experience while the starters get some rest? Or do you just keep the well-oiled machine going? A big matchup against the Jaguars for some revenge. It's down in Jacksonville. I might have to make a trip to that game. That might be very interesting on November 18th.
Right, because as much as we talked about the Steelers and Patriots supposedly being the two teams last season, the Jags did knock them off in the playoffs and take their shot in that AFC Championship game. So.
And with Jalen Ramsey talking so much, giving so much shade. I mean, even though he did give props to Ben Roethlisberger, but still, with so much shade being given, I don't think the Steelers are taking that game lightly, because that's a potential playoff opponent. And you may not show a lot, but you may have to bring out the big guns to let this team know who's still the boss.
Yeah.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me?
Exactly. Coach.
Playoffs?
Right, Coach. We're talking playoffs already.
Division.
Yeah,
there's only one team, in my opinion, in this division that's going to see the playoffs.
Yep.
So, all right, so that's your AFC North. Let's go over to the NFC side of things, and let's talk about the teams in the Northern Division over there.
This one might be a little bit more
from
one-sided than we think, too.
Right. And, last season, like, we always have the high hopes for the Green Bay Packers, but once Aaron Rodgers goes down, those hopes go right out of the window. But let's start in the inverse order of how they finished last year, so that would take us to the 5-11 Chicago Bears. Let's talk about some changes for the Bears. Coaches, key departures, draft pick, off-season losses. I know some of the additions, backup quarterback Chase Daniel, who seems to always be able to find a job in the NFL. Quarterback Tyler Bray, receiver Allen Robinson, tight end, one of the best quarterbacks from the NFC East, Trey Burton. Oh, excuse me, he's a tight end. But Fred know all about his quarterback skills.
Yeah, nice shot.
Defensive end Aaron Lynch, and another player from the Eagles who kind of lost his spot to injury last season, kicker Cody Parkey, who was a favorite of mine when he was on the team. What did the Bears do that was notable in the NFL draft last season, Fred?
Roquan Smith. Can I say it again? Roquan Smith. I mean, for me, you've replaced the tradition at linebacker that we saw one go into the Hall of Fame. We've already seen, and they've continued that tradition of that middle linebacker spot. And you got a good one because Roquan Smith is going to be, he had a big impact, a huge impact on that Georgia team that came within seconds of winning a national championship. He was NFL ready, and I think he's gonna bring a lot of leadership to that team. I'm interested in seeing what they do, how they use him, and really how this team goes forward. And of course, you can't forget, we've been following this guy for the last couple seasons, Mr. Last Chance U himself, John Franklin III, running back and cornerback, who's been getting toasted by Bengals rookie Alden Tate, who might, we forgot, I just a disclaimer, in the whole additions thing, he might be part of that whole additions thing. He's getting first-team reps already. He's a go-get-it jump ball receiver, and John Franklin III got introduced to him he got introduced to his former Florida State teammate very early.
Can you repeat the part of the stuff where you said all about the things?
John Franklin, yeah. All right, so some of their off-season losses: wide receiver Marcus Wheaton, guard Josh Sitton, Pernell McPhee, Willie Young, Jarrell Freeman, and safety Quentin Dempsey. How is this Bears offense going to function under year 2 of their young passer?
Mitchell Trubisky, you have a second-year quarterback, a first-year head coach, and a first-time offensive coordinator in the NFL. This could get me really, really good, or it could be really, really bad. You have Matt Nagy, who comes over from Kansas City, a good quarterback guy, a good offensive guy under Andy Reid, so you know he's been taught well. But then you have his offensive coordinator, Mark Helfrich, former Oregon head coach. That's going to be an interesting marriage. How will that go? It seems like with Helfrich, he was a run-first guy. Jordan Howard's still the guy. He's the bell cow for this team, so you'll expect a lot of run game from him. Tariq Cohen is a really dynamic back you can use in various ways. But the trigger man, Mitchell Trubisky, is going to be the guy, and I think he's improved a bit, but I want to see it on the field when the bullets are flying, not necessarily in a 7-on-7 or a practice.
Right. I think Trubisky, of course, with Nagy coming over, he's probably going to have increased opportunities with the RPOs because he does have some mobility. People don't talk about that kind of stuff, but he's pretty mobile on the sneak tip. But yeah, like you said, I think Nagy's going to do a lot to make that offense look more modern than it's looked in recent years. So we'll see. You got Taylor Gabriel and Anthony Miller to try to bolster the receiving core. Last year, Gabriel, he showed potential with Atlanta. He caught 35 passes for almost 600 yards and 6 touchdowns. So we'll see if he can come over and help the young quarterback with that. Of course, they spend a lot of money upgrading the tight end. I was a little upset when they grabbed my guy, Trey Burton. They signed him to a 4-year deal, $32 million. Trey Burton, throwing the pass in the Super Bowl aside, he had really cemented himself just last year as a very good backup tight end.
Jordan Reed.
So with the money that they're paying him, does that mean they're going to, it's time for him to start? They're going to bump him up and let him start? Or maybe he's going to be Trubisky's backup quarterback. I don't know what their plans are, but they paid a pretty penny for him to come over. But yeah, he thrived last year, especially when Ertz got nicked up a little bit. So that should be a nice upgrade at the tight end position. Flip it over to the defensive side. We talked about the Steelers earlier and how throughout the 2000s and throughout the history of their franchise, like, defense has been the name of the game. And that's been the same thing with the Chicago Bears. The team was competitive in a lot of games last year, and I think it's because of the defense, who only gave up about 20 points per game last season. I'm not saying that the monsters of the Midway are back, but what do you see from this defense?
I think this team will be a little bit more disciplined this year. Second year, third year in the same system helps. The addition of a guy like a Roquan Smith helps also, because while he may be a young guy, he'll be that young guy that can be a leader on and off the field. He'll find his way, and they'll kind of let him do his thing. But he's going to be the stalwart of this team for probably the next 10 years. And we don't get guys like this often, so cherish him while you have him, Chicago, because when it's over with, defense might be a little bit different.
All right, I'm going to use 3 different adjectives to describe this unit. I think they're deep up front. I think they're very good at linebacker, and I think they have talent in the secondary. Talent doesn't always mean production, because talent usually, that moniker usually comes with younger cats. So we'll see, how they can gel as a unit. Their cornerbacks that are returning from last year are Kyle Fuller or Prince Amukamara. Did one of them leave, or are they both still coming back?
They're both coming back. You're talking about Kendall Fuller. That's the wrong Fuller. They're brothers, but yeah, we have both Fuller brothers. Fuller and Amukamara are both coming back.
Okay, so they were able to retain both of them. All right, so yeah, I mean, they got some talent back there in the secondary. Maybe last season, I think getting pressure from the edge was maybe the weakness of this defense. So, we'll see how their pass rushers can fare during the 2018 season. But let's talk a little bit about their schedule and what we predict for this particular team in this NFC North division. And, this team has an early bye at week 5, but they come out of the gate at the Packers, home to the Seahawks, at the Cardinals, and home to the Buccaneers before they go to their bye week. And, that they have a stretch in the second half of the season that could get a little tricky after the bye, at the Dolphins, home to the Patriots. Then you got the Jets and Bills. And then you have a gamut of divisional games that could make or break a season. In the Bears' case, probably going to be the one to break the season. But what do you see in the schedule, and what do you see as far as what's for this team?
I see this team being a 6-win football team. You know what you're getting for Aaron Rodgers. The crazy thing is with this team is you're getting Aaron Rodgers early. You're getting Tom Brady early. You're getting Jameis Winston early, Russell Wilson early.
Before they get hurt.
Before anything crazy happens. And then you get Matthew Stafford lumped in there 2 out of the next 3 weeks in week 10 and 12. I hate when the NFL does that. Makes 2 division rivals play each other within 2 weeks. But then at the end, you get Jared Goff and that defense, Aaron Rodgers and it's at home, but it still doesn't matter because it's Aaron Rodgers. And then you get Jimmy Garoppolo and on the road. That's probably the best case scenario for Chicago. Simply, it's a warm weather game. And then you finish the season with the new version of the Purple People Eaters, with guys that tackle guys with good tackling form and still get penalized for it. So maybe it's a penalty start.
You say you finish the season or you get finished by the Vikings? I think you get finished.
Yeah, you get finished. Kirk Cousins and company are just going to smother these guys. This team, 5, maybe 6 wins.
Man, we're in I'm telling you, we're in agreement a lot with these records. I'm thinking 6 wins for the Chicago Bears this season. All right, so let's go to the Green Bay Packers, who finished last season 7-9. We all know why they finished the season 7-9, because once Aaron Rodgers goes down for this team shows you why we all hold Aaron Rodgers in such high regard. Some of their additions and offseason losses. They have gained Jimmy Graham, which is a good pickup at tight end.
That's a lottery ticket right there.
Another tight end, Mercedes Lewis, defensive tackle Muhammad Wilkerson, and cornerback Tramon Williams in the fold.
Like he keeps going back to Green Bay every time it doesn't work out somewhere else.
Back in the fold. He gets exposed and then goes back to Green Bay. Some of their draft picks, they went defensive backfield in the draft as well. Cornerback Zaire Alexander and Joshua Jackson. Linebacker Oren Burks. Wide receiver Jamon Moore. On the offensive line, Cole Madison and a punter, J.K. Scott. Some of their losses, wide receiver Jordy Nelson, who used to be one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets. Jeff Janis, tight end Richard Rodgers. Richard Rodgers is in Philly now, right? Guard Jari Evans, Ahmad Brooks, Joe Thomas, Demarius Randall, and safety Morgan Burnett. So let's talk about the offense a little bit, Fred. With Aaron Rodgers back in the fold, how good do you think this offense could be? It's always an offense that struggles in the run game. But what do you see for it in 2018?
I don't think this team will struggle as bad as you think they will. Aaron Jones, running back, he's been getting a lot of traction in the football community here, because he's one of those guys. He keeps making plays. He made plays last year at the end of the year, and now he's just picking up where he left off. But the attraction here is Aaron Rodgers. We know that's what we came to see. We didn't come to see Jimmy Graham, but it's great to see him. It's going to be great to see Jimmy Graham line up out wide, get thrown a fade route, and it doesn't even matter because you know he's going to catch it against some small 5'10" DB. Or just when you think it's a slant, it's going to be if you think it's a fade, it's going to be a slant. And then when you think you have both of those routes covered, he's going to hit you with a slant and go, and it's over with. So this offense is going to be fun to watch. I want to see where the offensive line is when about midway through the season, and how they're going to see Ty Montgomery. Is he really a running back, or is he a receiver? Is he just a receiving back? I mean, he really has so many roles, and it just seems like he's not getting the production that he's looking for, despite having dual roles and dual responsibilities.
I actually can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Graham playing together. I think that could be a very good combination right there. You mentioned the offensive line. That's usually where the Packers struggle, because the offensive line always forces Aaron Rodgers, when healthy, to do a little too much. They ask too much of him. Now, outside of left tackle, because I think they have a very good left tackle, the line could get a little shaky. They do have a pretty good guard over there. What is his name? Bulaga.
Brian Bulaga, yes.
Brian Bulaga. He's not bad, but I'm naming two guys that I think won't be problems. So you have three other maybes within the offensive line, and you're trying to protect what arguably the best quarterback in the league, and you're not trying to have him missing games again, because you know what happens when he misses games. So I think that's the question mark, of course. Jordy Nelson is gone, but they still have Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Geronimo Allison, and the addition of Jimmy Graham. So with those guys, I think Aaron Rodgers can make some things happen. So they're still going to be explosive on offense. Any quick thoughts about this offense before we move over to the defensive side?
If everything goes right, Aaron Rodgers is winning MVP. Just the way it is.
Chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, the football gods have blessed him again. It's an embarrassment of riches, even by, and this is me saying this, seeing as how, Tom Brady gets the most embarrassment of riches, but this guy, he just keeps getting some of the best skill talents you can never have. So, MVP.
So is this going to be a y'all must have forgot season, even though everybody in the world still gives him his props, even when he's sitting on the sideline?
Yeah.
he might be like Michael Jordan. He has to make up some slights so he can go out there and destroy it.
Yeah, he's going to have to tell people to put some respect back on his name because so many people have been so disrespectful. You see
all right, so the Green Bay Packers defense. What do you think of them? I mean, I think the general manager did a pretty good job of upgrading the secondary. I mentioned the two early picks in the draft were both secondary guys. But what do you see from this Packers defense?
Defense? You said defense or defense? Because I don't see any D here. Pause. But I don't see any of that here. So I have a few players I really want to see play for this defense. Kevin King for that corner. He's supposed to be Richard Sherman light. He has the size. He's from Washington. But they don't play the type of defense that he really would thrive in. A big, tall, rangy corner. Really want to see those two rookies, especially Josh Jackson. Really, anytime you get an Iowa guy, you always want something good to happen. Those guys are always just, lunch pail kind of guys. Still not a good pass rushing team. It just seems like they're just there. It's just they're just aesthetically there just to be pleasing. Clay Matthews has not been the same since probably who knows how long. Maybe it's the hair. Maybe he doesn't have enough of the gel. Maybe he doesn't have enough of the head and shoulders. I don't know what's going on, but Clay Matthews hasn't been the same in years. But I do like that Clinton Dix is in the backfield. He's still back there picking people off, making people pay. But this defense is a middle of the road to below average defense at best.
All right, so let's take a look at the schedule and where do you think this team can finish? And they come right out of the gate with the Bears and Vikings at home. Then they travel to Washington. They have the Bills at home. They travel to Detroit, and they have the 49ers at home before a bye week in Week 7 where they pick it up against the Dream Team out in Los Angeles, the Rams, and then and these are 2 road games, the Dream Team and then the Patriots, then Dolphins, then at Seahawks, then at Vikings. I think this stretch right out of the bye week is going to be their this is going to be the stretch that shows you what the Packers are made of when you got to go on the road for most of these games, at the Rams, at the Patriots, home to the Dolphins, at the Seahawks, at the Vikings. Then you may get a reprieve with the Cardinals, and then you got to square up with the Falcons before you get maybe 3 layups to end the season. Is that the same stretch that you're looking at as the make or break time for the Packers this season?
Yeah, 4 out of the 5 coming off the bye week are away games, and you're going into Gillette, you're going into CenturyLink, and you're going into the new Vikings Stadium, just Bank of America Field. So that's going to be tough. Those crowds are not easy to play against. I know it's Seattle, and they're not that great, but it's still the 12th man, and I hope it rains. I hope it's cold, because that's the only way that stadium is. When it's rocking, it's rocking. It reminds me of the old LSU days when they were rocking in Death Valley, but it gives that college feel. But it's hard to beat those 4 teams on the road in their building. It's really tough. And if you lose 4 out of the 5 out of the gate off that bye week, after you'll probably end up going maybe 5-4 5-1, 4-2. I think maybe the Vikings, they might lose that one, and the Redskins, I'm not sure. I'm kind of drinking the Kool-Aid over there, and it has nothing to do with Adrian Peterson. I just think this team's going to be sneaky. So that might be, you could start 4-2, but then you lose another 4, you're in trouble. Even if you go, I don't know, even if you split, you still may be in a little bit of trouble. So with Atlanta looming. So this team, I think this team could be maybe an 8-8, 9-7 type of team. And that's Aaron Rodgers winning maybe 10 wins is like the ceiling for this team, knowing what this defense gives me.
Yeah, I'm always drinking the Aaron Rodgers Kool-Aid, so I'm thinking 10-6. I think their ceiling is 11-5, but I think 10-6 would be closer to what's going to actually end up happening. So we'll see how that plays out. A-Rod is back. We'll see for how long. But let's move on to the Detroit Lions, who finished the season last year second in this division with a final record of 9-7. This division, as we know, only got one playoff team in because the NFC South hogged all of the playoff spots. So the 9-7 Detroit Lions come in with some additions: backup quarterback Matt Castle, running back, and two-time Super Bowl champion in the last 2 years with 2 different teams. Teams that played each other last year: LeGarrette Blount, tight end Luke Wilson, Kenny Wiggins, Ricky Jean-Francois, Sylvester Williams, Devin Kennard, Jonathan Freeney, Christian Jones, Sheed. They were busy on the acquisition tip this off season. Some of their early draft picks: offensive lineman Frank Ragnow, Kerryon Johnson, running back safety Tracy Walker, defensive tackle Deshaun Hand, offensive tackle Tyrell Cosby, and some of their losses: tight end Eric Ebron, Darren Fells, Travis Swanson, Dwight Freeney. They lost a Dwight and picked up a Jonathan. Haloti Ngata, Jordan Hill, Tahir Whitehead, Paul Warlow, DJ Hayden, and safety Don Carey. So anything else from the additions and the departures, maybe some coaching moves or some draft.
We got a new head coach here, and I'm very familiar with this guy, Matt Patricia. Gosh, Belichick, how'd you let him go? The beard's gone. It looks odd. He looks so odd in a certain tie. I'm so used to just the hat being backwards, pencil in the ear, big old beard, just chugging away. You just know he's going to come up with a great defensive scheme. But Matt Patricia, I'm happy for him. He finally got his head coaching job. I just hate that he went to the Lions. That's why I go somewhere where you're never going to win anything. But he's going to be now with those guys. And you kind of see his fingerprints all over this team with certain guys are coming in from the Patriots and other previous teams he may have connections with. But as far as additions or subtractions, nobody really just – Tahir Whitehead may be something that hurts on defense. Simply put, really talented linebackers are hard to find, especially strong side backers. But otherwise, nothing that I'm just really hurt about or you can't replace.
Right. All right, well, speaking of additions, let's talk about some of the additions on the offensive side of the ball. They should have a much better running game this season with the addition of LeGarrette Blount and brain fart.
Amir Abdullah.
Well, no, I think I'm thinking more of the draft pick, Kerryon Johnson.
Oh, Kerryon Johnson, yeah.
I think
also,
Amir,
SEC in rushing yards, yeah.
Yeah, I think Amir Abdullah might be the odd man out because we know that the third down back, Theo Riddick, he's probably, he's a pretty good third down back, so he's probably going to continue to be that guy. But yeah, I'm thinking LeGarrette Blount and Kerryon Johnson maybe taking a lot of the work and production away from Amir Abdullah. I mean, I'll say work, I won't say production, because Amir Abdullah wasn't great on the production side anyway. His targets on the outside, you know, his downfield and intermediate people, pretty much the same, with the exception of Eric Ebron. He's been replaced by Luke Wilson, but the receiving core is exactly as it was from last year. And there aren't names on the receiving core that just jump out at you as superstars, but they're pretty serviceable. Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay. You know, Marvin Jones is emerging, and we always know Golden Tate to be pretty reliable as receivers go. Anything special about this offense? Where do you think, you know, it could go?
Philosophy change, maybe. You won't see a ton of the just. I think what you'll see is Matthew Stafford being a little bit more conservative and safe with the football. He won't be just such an interception machine where he's just trying to fit everything into a pinhole. Where he'll be a little bit more methodical. I think that's going to be the best thing with that this offense can have. A lot of dink and dunks. So you're going to see the Patriots imprints all over this team, especially with Patricia on the defensive side.
All right. So speaking of, on the defense, what's Matt Patricia going to do with that defense?
I think
they should have better personnel and better coaching. So
I think it's a work in progress. I think what you're going to see over the next couple of years, the secondary is going to be the first thing to get a lot better because the defensive line, as long as you keep a guy like Ziggy Ansah, you have the pass rusher. You have the defensive linemen that can help you, but those guys are only as useful as the secondary that they have to complement them. So it has to be, every level of the game has to be complemented. And I think this team has a nice mixture of okay players that they can kind of build around until they can get some star guys. They just can't, they have to do their job. See what I did there? Patriot Nation everywhere around. They have to do their job instead of trying to be the individual that they may have been somewhere else.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you're a Patriot guy. You're a Matt Patricia guy. So I'll just defer to you on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll go straight to the key games on the schedule and what we think this team is going to be overall. So I'm looking at their schedule now. This team has a bye around week 6, and they start out with the Jets at home, at the 49ers, the Patriots at home. Matt Patricia gets an early chance to deal with his old team. At the Cowboys, Packers at home, then they go into that bye week. See a few strong teams after the bye, but anything. I think Fred might be having some technical difficulties, so I'll talk about this Detroit team coming out of the gate. I don't know. I'm looking at the schedule, and I don't see a murderer's row of teams, but finishing at 9-7 last year and second in this division with the Packers back in the fold, I'm not exactly sure, you know, if the Detroit Lions are going to be able to hold that spot and maybe fight for a wild card and, you know, the second place spot in this division. I don't see this being like an NFC North last year where they're going to get more than 2 teams in the playoffs if they do get teams in the playoffs. So for me, I'm thinking that the Detroit Lions will probably, in Matt Patricia's first year, stay around the same record, maybe a 9-7, maybe even 8-8, with Green Bay being back in the fold with Aaron Rodgers. So, Fred, what are you thinking with this schedule and your prediction for their wins?
Looking at this schedule, it's kind of a mixed bag. You get the Jets early, that's a confidence booster. You get the 49ers, not the greatest team in the world, but if you somehow that could be a nice intro to the season. You know that Matthew Stafford game where there's dueling quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo's not a slouch. He knows what to do with this young talent that he may not be the big name. So even if you pull a win off there and you're 2-0. Welcome to New England, and yeah, you get to host New England, but it's teacher versus student, and that's where you get to come back down to earth, and that's where the 8-8 starts, because that's where you start getting teams like the Packers, you start getting teams like the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Rams, the Packers at the end. That's where your 8-8 starts. You'll get your mixed bag you'll get your wins you'll pick a team off here and there. But maybe an 8-8, 9-7 type of season. A typical Lions year, every now and then they'll come up with 10, 11 wins, but then they come right back down to earth. So, Lions fans, get excited early, because when teacher versus student happens, it's going to get ugly.
All right, so let's go to the team that won the division last year, and the team that when they pulled off the miracle against the Saints in the playoffs, the team that everybody just knew had that destiny story, and they were going to be in the Super Bowl, if not win the Super Bowl. And that was your 13-3 Minnesota Vikings. I'm proud to say that we all know what happened to them in the NFC Championship game. Everything just kind of fell apart for them. Either they played their worst game of the season or the Eagles played their best game of the season. But it kind of went south, and they were the heavy favorites, even being on the road. Started out that game strong, went right down the field on the Eagles for a 7-0 lead, and a lot of us thought that it was going to be a long day for Philly, and then it turned into a really short day for them. Additions, off-season losses, draft picks. Let's talk about them, Fred. We all know the biggest addition, quarterback Kirk Cousins.
First Cousins, Captain Kirk. Yeah, we like it.
Yes, you like that. So shout out to Kirk Cousins, because he finally got out of that situation. Washington finally got his money fully guaranteed.
You like that? You like that?
Yes, we do like that, Kirk Cousins, and I think a lot of the Vikings fans like it as well, because even though Case Keenum had a pretty good year and he was one of the feel-good stories of the year, I think everybody is in agreement that this is an upgrade at the QB spot. They got a backup in Trevor Siemian, wide receiver Kendall Wright, guard Tom Compton, and defensive tackle just in the add to those purple people eaters. Fred calls them the 2.0 version of the purple people eaters. Some of their early draft picks, cornerback Mike Hughes, offensive tackle Brian O'Neill, defensive end Jalen Holmes, tight end Tyler Conklin, kicker Daniel Carlson. Now, some of their losses, they lost three quarterbacks, picked up two quarterbacks. Case Keenum's gone. Teddy Bridgewater's gone. Sam Bradford's gone.
He didn't light it up either.
Running back Jerick McKinnon is gone. Wide receiver Michael Floyd, Jarius Wright, they're gone. Joe Berger, Tom Johnson, Shamar Stevens, Tremaine Brock, Marcus Sherrills, all gone from an NFC Championship team. But I don't think, with all the names that I just named, I don't think anybody's worried, because this is still a very, very talented roster. And Fred, if you don't have any more additions, departures, draft picks, or coaching moves, talk to me about that offense.
Offensively, you're going to see a lot of what you saw last year, except, and I really don't, I have a good feeling. I already know. I know we haven't done our preseason awards, but I have a good feeling I know who my offensive rookie of the year may be. I'm sorry, not offensive rookie of the year, comeback player of the year. The one Dalvin Cook. Not trying to give anything away. He's just he had a nice start to last year, and then the knee happened, and you blew my fantasy hopes, even though I won anyway at the end, thank goodness. But I had a good, and I don't like, how I feel about those people in Tallahassee, but I had a good feeling Dalvin Cook will really have a good chance to tear it up last year, and well, he tore it up, but not in the way I wanted, and but now you're going to get a better version of the quarterback we thought we should have got last year, where Kirk Cousins has the arm. Right now, it seems like they're trying to get their timing right, and it's expected because he's a new quarterback. You have new quarterback, new receivers, new offensive line. Everybody has to gel. But Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen might have to be the best tandem of wide receivers in the league, and that's saying a lot, especially when you have guys like Edelman, and I consider Gronk a receiver tight end kind of duo. So when you have guys like that, you have the likes of Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb, and you have other big name receiving tandems, but this one might be the best. And by the way, you can sprinkle in some Kyle Rudolph and now some Conklin in there at tight end as well. That's going to be huge. The more weapons you give First Cousins, as I call him, the more weapons you give him, the better. And I'm really excited about this offense that can finally complement a great defense, because defense wins championships.
That's true. I mean, but if there is a weakness on this offense, it's the most important thing. It's those fat boys up front. That might be the trade-off that might be noticeable earlier in the season from Case Keenum to Kirk Cousins. Not saying that Kirk Cousins is a stiff, because he's mobile in his own right, but I think Case Keenum is more willing to take off and run when he has to than Kirk Cousins is. But I think Kirk might have to get used to being a little more willing until this offensive line decides to gel, because with such a talented team that went so far last year, I still think that they did it despite having a weakness in the most important part of the field. So let's go over to the defense. Like, do we even have to talk about the defense? But no, I'll let you tackle the defense real quick. Arguably the league's best. You could talk about.
I don't know
them.
if I
you
can
could talk
tackle this
about
defense after what I saw the other night. I don't know. I might get flagged. I don't want to catch the flag. I don't want a yellow flag. But no. This team has.
They only gave up 17 and a half. Not even, almost 17 and a half points.
Historically
season,
good.
Historically, of course, they gave up 38 to the Birds in the playoffs.
Yeah. Of course, you're gonna let us know that one. I know you will. You got 365 days to live it up and enjoy it until. Never mind. I'm not gonna take for Super Bowl. But this team, what I like about this defense is it has Mike Zimmer's whole DNA all over this pause. But it has it all. He's building this team very much like he built that Bengals team, which, by the way, has fallen off since he's been there. You see, every year the Bengals would go after really good, really long-arm corners, tall corners, physical corners. Well, Mike Hughes is another one of those guys to add to the stable of corners that they have with Xavier Rhodes, Mackenzie Alexander, old man Terrence Newman, who's still alive and kicking somehow. You just can't put an old dog down, I guess. And on top of that, Trey Waynes, who never developed. He just is a speed demon. But when you have really decent corners, by the way, you have pretty good safeties in Harrison Smith, who, by the way, is a complete eraser and just obliterates the stereotype about safeties. I'll leave that alone, but you know what I mean. So,
especially considering, some people out there arguing for him being the best safety in the league. So that definitely obliterates that stereotype, the fact that his name even comes up.
Exactly. And that's not even the best part about this defense. You also have guys like Anthony Barr, who's one of the most athletic guys in the league at linebacker, Everson Griffin, Daniel Hunter, Linval Joseph, and by the way, you add in Sheldon Richardson. That defensive line is going to be fun to watch. This defense, this is a complete defense. Scary good. Scary good. And by the way, I know because I'm dreading my Patriots. We'll get there in a minute, but I'm dreading my team seeing this team. I don't want to see this team.
All right. So before we look at the schedule, the defense is definitely scary. I guess the only unknowns right now is how well, Kirk Cousins is gonna gel into the offense, which is very important because he's going to be the lead of the offense. The offensive line, like I said before, on a team full of stars and a team full of potential, that's probably their weak spot. And then I don't know if you think so because, your record for them was a little bit less than what mine was. But the Packers are back. So there's going to be a fight in this division. It's not going to just be a runaway like it was last season. So those are the three things that are unknowns as far as the Minnesota Vikings go. But we'll look at that schedule and see what they're working with here. They got Garoppolo at home right out of the gate. Then they're already on the road to see division rivals Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, home to the Bills, at the Dream Team out in L.A., at the Super Bowl champs, home to the Cardinals, at the Jets, home to the Saints, home to the Lions before a bye week in Week 10. After Week 10, it gets no easy because you got the Bears, Packers, the Super Bowl runner-ups, at the Seahawks. They're at the Patriots, by the way. So, they have a first-place schedule, and it shows. So they're going to have to earn everything they get this season. So what do you see as a record for the Minnesota Vikings? And what do you see in the schedule that concerns you?
The schedule it's a bit brutal because, see, my philosophy when I look at schedules, I say, who's the quarterback? That's the first thing we say. Who's the quarterback? Right. And I see Garoppolo. I see Aaron Rodgers twice. I see Wentz or Foles. It really doesn't matter because that defense is that's what's going to win this game for those Eagles. But you do see where they can feast a little bit on maybe a Bills team with a young quarterback, a Cardinals team with a young quarterback, a Jets team with a young quarterback, a Bears team with a young quarterback, the Dolphins and their non-quarterback. So for me, I can easily see this team winning. If you say those are your gimme games, and maybe even splitting with the Lions, or even winning both division games against the Lions, where if defense wins championships and a defense is better than a good offense, where the other team doesn't have really a semblance of a defense, I could see this team winning 11, maybe 12 games, 11-5, 12-4. Yeah. And the swing games are really just the Patriots, the Seahawks. Those are your swing games. If they can even say they have 4 swing games, they can go 2-2, 3-1. Just don't have a negative record in those. You could easily see this team having 11 or 12 wins, no problem.
Yeah, we're on the same page with this one. I see them getting 11 wins. So yeah, at 11-5, it's most likely that that they'll still be able to end up winning the division. But the fact that I have the Packers up around 10 or 11 wins as well, like I said, it's going to be a fight. And even though if they do finish 11-5, and that's 2 games under where they finished last season, in no way do I expect this to be a worse team than last year. I actually expect the team to be better. I just expect the competition to be better. So I expect a better Vikings team going into the playoffs and being better prepared to, face whatever they have to face in the NFC playoffs, albeit with probably a worse record than they went in with last season.
Might week 2 through 5 really influence that a little bit, where you go to Lambeau, you go to LA, and by the way, you go to Philly. Those are outside of that Patriot game, those, and maybe the Saints game. Those are the 5 games that that's your 5 losses or 5 wins or somewhere along the line. There's 3 and 2 somewhere in there. You got to win something, because what if you don't get the top seed, which it's very likely you may not. You may have to go to the team again.
Right. And if you have to do that again, people aren't going to be sleeping like they were last season. When they
no lucky tackles this time. Marcus Williams will make that tackle next time.
Right, no doubt. All right, so there we have it. That is our AFC and NFC North 2018 NFL preview. We will continue the series in our next episode when we give you our in-depth analysis of the AFC and NFC South divisions. The season it's creeping up on us. So definitely stay tuned. Check out everything we're doing at warroomsports.com. You can check out Cover 2. You can check out Quick Slants. You can check out the flagship show, The War Room. Fred joins us on The War Room as well to give college football analysis. But you just make sure you go to the hub, check out everything we're doing. We'll let you know where you can go see these previews until the podcast network is back up and in effect. Right now, we're doing it on YouTube, so you can check it out on the War Room Sports YouTube page. You can check it out on Fred's YouTube page as well. So until next time, everybody, another edition of Cover 2 with McMillan and Purdue, and for my partner Fred, this is Devin. We've enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time. Don't accept mediocrity. Be steadfast in the war against ignorance. We'll see you chumps on top.
Going up to LaFell. Touchdown. The big screen. Center. Over the middle. Touchdown. Play action. Cutler wide open. Sanzenbacher.
War Room Sports, www.warroomsports.com. What? Ain't no more to it.
It's the 2 megastars summer mashup. The awesome iPhone on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port and number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.
It's the 2 megastars summer mashup. The awesome iPhone on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port and number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.